My name is Olivia, and on today's training session we are going to learn about not just to become a tour guide, but how to become a great one. So, can anyone tell me who a tour guide is? Any ideas?
Someone who shows people around.
Yeah. Firstly, any ones?
Person who guides whilst going on tour.
Right. So these are our objectives for this session. So we are going to talk about different types of guides and different types of tours, and how to become a tour guide, what traits a good tour guide should possess, and how to be a good public speaker, and also how to incorporate like your body language when you're presenting a tour. So that's the definition of a tour guide. So a tour guide is a person who shows stories around places of interest. They provide assistance and information to people on organized tours. So there are also like many different types of tour guides. So have any ideas like what types of tour guides are there?
Transfer tour guide.
Yeah. What else?
For ones like for themed ones, so murder mystery tours and things like that.
So we've got on-site tour guide, city guide, professional tour guide, amateur, linguist, and driver tour guide, private personal. So like on-site tour guide is someone who like guides a specific building or attraction. A city guide, someone who points out and comments on highlights of the city. A professional tour guide is just someone like well experienced. The linguist tour guide is someone who speaks like 2 or more languages. Driver tour guide, he just basically guides the tour while driving a vehicle. And a private or personal, they just take a small number of individuals on their own experience. So there are some kinds of guides. So you can be a freelance guide who is not permanently connected to any travel agency. You can be a staff guide who is permanently connected with a travel agency and receives monthly salary. And you can be a local guide. So you can guide in a certain locality or area. So these are just few types of tours. These are a lot of tours. So if you want to become a tour guide, you can choose from a variety of different types of tours. So if you can think about it, there's a chance that a tour like that exists. So there's a historical, underground, religious, waterside sightseeing, adventure, show excursion, bus tours, walking tours, museum tours, or wine tours, and many different ones. So now that we know more about tour guides and types of tours that exist, it's time to learn how to become a tour guide. So we're going to watch a step-by-step video on the process of how to become a tour guide.
Just before we get started, here's a few things that you'll never hear on a job hunt. Boy, I can't wait to start my job search before we get started. Gosh, I wish I could work all of these jobs at once. Boy, I can't wait to start my job search. Gosh, I wish I could work all of these jobs at once. Hi, Kelsey Donor here from BeABetterGuide.com. So perhaps you're here because you're searching for a tour guide job, or maybe you just want to learn a little bit more about the industry. Either way, I can tell you that there are hundreds and thousands of different tour guide jobs all over the world, and there's more and more every year. The World Tourism Organization recognizes that global tourism is one of the fastest growing sectors of the global economy. So that's good news. That doesn't necessarily mean that the job hunt is going to be easy, or even that there's necessarily guiding jobs in the place you want to work. That being said, I put together this video with a few questions that you want to ask yourself when looking for tour guiding jobs. Plus, at the very end, I've got an awesome bonus for you to help on your job hunt. First question, do you want to work in your own country or travel internationally? And this is a pretty big question. It's going to depend on factors like, is there actually tourism in the area you'd like to work? But as a general rule, it's easier to get hired as a guide as a local or a national from the country in which you like to work. And this makes sense too, if you think from the traveler's perspective. Somebody who grew up here and spent their whole life here is going to have all kinds of insights into the history, the culture, etc. But that being said, there's lots of opportunities where you can work internationally. I've had tours in Paris that were delivered by New Zealanders who are studying in Paris, or people from Poland who are working in Croatia or the Czech Republic. Sometimes I've met national guides who escort groups, say from South Korea. It would be Korean guides who escort them on trips around the world. So those opportunities exist as well. 2, do you want to be a tour director or a tour guide? Now, I made a previous video that explained this distinction, which I'll put a link to below. But very briefly, I think of tour guides as the folks who are with travelers and guests for shorter periods of time, like an afternoon tour, or maybe a tour that lasts a couple days. Tour guides will tend to have a sort of specific knowledge on a particular topic. Let's say winemaking, if it's a winemaking tour, or the architecture of a city, if it's an architectural tour of a city, or something like the Colosseum, if you happen to be leading tours there. Tour guides can also have specialized skills. If you think of a whitewater rafting guide, they're probably going to have some paddling skills and rescue skills that go along with that guiding job. Tour directors or tour managers, on the other hand, will generally facilitate the logistics of a longer tour or an event, something like a conference. Now, these can be things like helping with the logistics of transportation, of passport and border controls, airport pickups, getting groups and escorting them to restaurants, to their accommodations, and oftentimes they'll work with multiple guides. So if I'm facilitating a group or leading a group through an itinerary, we might have a winemaking tour with a winemaking guide, a local guide, on Monday, and then Tuesday we'll go have that tour of the Colosseum. Now, much like a tour guide, being a tour director, you can work internationally, escorting groups on international itineraries, or you can do it in your home country. Most major cities will have something called a destination management company. So if there's a big event or a conference happening, they'll work with tour directors and tour managers to help people get out and see the highlights of their country. Now, you want to think about this distinction, but don't get too hung up on the terms. There's lots of companies that use those terms pretty interchangeably, and there's sometimes roles that you can get hired for that are kind of a blend of both. 3, what type of tours would you like to lead? Because the tourism industry is so diverse these days, there's lots of options when it comes to guiding. You know, if you get a job as a brewery tour guide, you're going to have a very different job than if you're a fly fishing guide working in some wilderness camp. So when it comes to your job hunt, think about what experience you would like to facilitate, or what you would enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis, and also what skills might make you a good candidate for that job. Now, to give you some ideas, I'm going to put a link below to 101 different tour ideas. This is going to give you a sense of just how many different tours are operating out there right now. And under each one of those headings, there's some links to actual companies who lead tours in that area. 4, do you want to work for yourself or work for someone else? There are pros and cons to both choices. Now, working for yourself, you're almost certainly going to have to put in more effort, but the trade-offs of having more freedom, flexibility, and control over your own business might be worth it to you. Now, if you're freelancing and doing this yourself, you'll need to be the one responsible for things like licensing, insurance, marketing, sales, and customer service. But these days, it's becoming easier and easier to partner with people like TripAdvisor and Viator, GetYourGuide.com, and Peak, just to name a few of the big players who are online tour agents, basically, who will market and sell your tours for you for a small commission. So there are also peer-to-peer marketplaces. Think of the Airbnbs, but for tours and activities. There's all kinds of websites that are popping up, some of them working, some of them not working. But I'll put a link below to another resource, which is over 90 different websites where you can list your tour or activity online. But if you're interested in just in guiding and sort of facilitating that experience, and you think that's what you would enjoy the most, it's probably the best bet just to work for another company and let them handle the rest. 5, do you need a license to work where you want to work? In many highly touristic areas, you actually need a permit or a license to be a tour guide. These are sometimes controlled by national governments, or sometimes by municipal or city governments. Now, in other places, in other parts of the world, it really varies quite a bit. Sometimes you don't need a license at all. For example, here in Canada, you can work as a guide in Vancouver, in Toronto, and the vast majority of Canada without any kind of license. However, if you want to be a guide in Montreal or the city of Quebec, you do need a permit. So the best thing to do is to look into your local situation. A good place to start is asking other guides who are already working in that space. And 2, try and contact a National Tour Guide Association, because they can help with these types of questions. 6, would you prefer to work for a smaller tour company or a larger tour company? Smaller tour companies tend to offer more seasonal employment. There tends to be a lot more options to choose from because there are just more smaller companies out there. And lastly, you tend to have closer relationship with your employer, with your bosses, and even your fellow employees. Now, larger tour companies can sometimes provide more stability, more work, sometimes better pay. And they can also occasionally provide opportunities for promotion or developing your career. Now, if you're interested in working internationally as a global guide, then these large multinational companies are definitely the way to go. 7, what skills can I work on that will make me a strong candidate? Companies are always looking for enthusiastic, personable, and pleasant people to hire as tour guides. If you're a great presenter, if you are organized and you've got a good memory, those are all traits that help. And if you're comfortable leading tours in multiple languages, well, that is going to be a huge asset for you, as well as any experience you've got in the service industry. If you're interested in developing those skills or learning more about what makes an incredible tour guide, you should definitely check out www.beabetterguide.com. I hear that site's
Right. So, as you can see, there are like many different things to consider when you want to be a tour guide. But also, all tour guides might possess like the same traits. It doesn't matter what kind of tour guide you want to be. You still need these things to help you guide your tours. So, one and the most important things is to be communicative. So, like communication skills. So on a basic level, guides should be great at projecting their voices across the group and be able to do so in a clear manner, so like everyone can understand. And on an interpersonal level, being great at knowing how to communicate well with people is a huge asset. So the next thing is likability. So guides shouldn't just be able to communicate well, they must be great speakers with outgoing personalities. So they must be like open-minded, approachable, friendly, and they also should ask thoughtful questions. So you can be liked by everyone, but much of your likability is in your own hands. So another really important thing is a good memory. So guides simply can get information wrong and spend extra time trying to remember it or spend the whole tour reading from a piece of paper. So they must be good as storytellers and be able to remember stats, facts, and interesting anecdotes. It's also important that tour guides remember the names of their customers to create a more personal experience. So next thing is humor. So whilst they don't have to be like comedians, tour guides need to be quick-witted so they can like throw friendly jokes in when it's appropriate. So the atmosphere is not like really serious. And they also need to possess leadership skills. So since they're managing a group of people, the ability to have a certain level of authority is crucial. So tour guides must be able to lead a group of people without being constantly snobby or aggressive. So all those traits are really important if you want to become a tour leader. It's important to be aware of them and see if you can improve on your leadership skills or your memory before you start job hunting. So tour guides are basically public speakers. So their job consists mostly of speaking in front of large audiences. And public speaking is not easy for everyone, but there are a few tips and techniques that everyone can use to feel more comfortable speaking and to engage their audience. These are a few tips that a tour leader can use to better themselves and their tours from a public speaking point of view. So you should always start with group's attention. Don't say anything of substance until everyone's listening. Everyone should be should put that. Yeah. You should only, throughout your tour, speak only with full attention, so don't speak if you're not sure that everyone's listening to you. And you should engage disruptive guests, so if someone's not listening to you, you can see that someone's talking or something, you should gently call them out, or place your hand on their shoulder or something. Or if you know the name, that's even better, because when someone hears the name, you're going to listen to you. You should also use gestures and techniques to engage your audience. So, for example, in Germany, I think tour leaders use that gesture, which is a silent fox. At the beginning of a tour, basically a tour guide will establish that this means this is quiet time, so no one's like allowed to speak. So then they do that, so they don't have to like yell at the guests. So basically, just show them down and they, stand quiet. And you should also think about the physical environment. So try and make your guests as comfortable as possible. Look for a shady place when it's too hot. Try to find a place for them to sit when the tour is longer. And find a quiet place if you're in a crowded area so they can hear you better. Also try to make yourself elevated as possible. It's very important that your guests can fully see you and hear you, so they will pay attention to what you're saying. So public speaking is not easy, but good body language can help you with getting the attention that you want. Your posture and position are going to be one of the first things that your guests notice. So you want to communicate confidence and at the same time make them feel at ease and comfortable. So here are a few tips on how to maintain a good body language on a tour. So the first and most important thing is maintaining an eye contact with your audience. So eye contact is the most important part of body language. It shows respect and interest in your guests. You want to try and focus on each individual guest and give them all of your attention. So scan the crowd and don't look directly on the ground in front of them. So keep your posture, keep your back straight and your shoulders relaxed. Try to find a position that will make you look the most confident without looking intimidating. So remember to never turn your back to your audience. And also use non-verbal cues. So when someone else is speaking, when a tour guide on the tour asks questions to the guests, they should always show interest. So like nod their head and smile at the person. So be more intentional with your gestures. So now that you know how to be confident with public speaking and how to use your body language to your advantage, let's talk about how to make your tour interesting. So with all that techniques and tips on how to get your audience's attention, now it's time to learn how to use every bit of it. So first and most important thing is to, of course, you need to be confident and use your body language. But people learn faster not listening to you, but like it's easy to show them something. So use interesting objects. Use photos and posters and handouts to drive curiosity and to save time on description. So it's not only easy for them, it's easy for you when you show something to them. Try to engage your all senses. So when you're on winemaking tour, your best part of the tour is the wine drinking. So if there's any way that you can incorporate food and drinks on your tour, definitely do it. And that's the end of the presentation bit. So we learned quite a bit about tour guides today. Now let's see how much you remember. So can I ask you to take out your phones and we're going to play a Kahoot.